Welcome back to Interesting Questions. Um, we have a video here from Awaken with JP, a very popular YouTuber. Um, Makes a lot of different content. I've seen a couple of his videos, but um, this video pertains to 13 reasons why the moon landing was faked. So we'll get his opinions on it, and I'll iterate. I'll give my commentary. Um, there's a lot of reasons why we believe now that the moon landing was faked. One, I know NASA says they lost the technology of how the moon landing was faked. I'm sorry, like how they went to the moon. Um, yeah, it's pretty weird. It's a very weird concept. But he's gonna break down the 13 reasons why the moon landing. He believes the moon landing was faked. So, like I said, this guy makes a lot of content. He's got a lot of followers. Um, so, like I said, uh, I, I'll give some commentary. I'm gonna iterate in between, and we will go from there. So, um, if you like this video, smash that like button, subscribe, share it with friends. Um, it helps out the cause. It'll help me to make more videos. But let's see what he has to say. Let's see what his opinions are on this, and like I said, we'll go from there.
There were 6 alleged moon landings between 1969 and 1972, and there's been 0 moon landings since. Seems a little suspicious, doesn't it? Well, that's because we never went to the moon. Let me prove it to you with 13 reasons why the moon landing was fake.
And like I said, these are his opinions. So those are not the opinions of this channel. Um, I believe it's possible we went to the moon. Maybe there's technology behind how we actually got there. I know there was a Chinese scientist that asked, I think Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong got mad at the question. I think he said, I'm not saying you didn't go to the moon. I'm just saying is if you went there, you didn't go in a tin can. So if you did go there, how did you actually get there? Because you didn't go in the means by the ways you said you got there. So
Why would America fake the moon landing? Well, at the time, the US was in the heat of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and the space race was important because of the fear that the Soviet Union might weaponize space by putting missile launch sites on the moon, leaving the US defenseless. Now, the US had already been beaten by the Soviet Union in putting the first person into space. They asserted their dominance over us like the dog whisperer putting a hostile rescue dog from Tijuana in its place. But if we could be the first to the moon, then we'd be the new alpha dog in the world. But in this case, what creates the alpha dog isn't the size of the fight in the dog. It's the size of the lie in the dog that's in the fight. Thus, the US became the new alpha dog when we were the first nation to fake the moon landing. The US government also faked the moon landing to distract the public from the Vietnam War, which wasn't very popular. It's like if I'm doing something you disapprove of and I can distract you from it, then you don't notice your disapproval of the thing I'm still doing. Look over there, a moon landing. Now let's look at some hard evidence. The flag waving in the wind. Now take a look at the astronauts proudly planting the American flag on the moon as it gracefully waves in the wind. There's just one problem with this. There's no wind on the moon, Einstein. Evidence of a hoax. No dust.
yeah, I always thought that was weird. That video, what he's bringing up there is very interesting because why would the flag be moving? You're kind of like, as far as we know, the moon has gravity, obviously, because it's an object. Anything that has mass has gravity. Um, why why would the flag be waving around like that? That is kind of odd. That's a very odd concept.
Dust kicked up on the lunar landing. Take a close look at the lunar module. You'll see there's no dust on the footpads, and it didn't leave a blast crater either. This would be approximately like diving into a swimming pool in your car and not making a splash. Guess what? The moon's surface is covered in dust. It's not like landing in a Walmart parking lot covered in pavement, so it would be impossible to land on the moon's surface without kicking up a dust storm. No stars in any photos. There are no stars in any photos taken from the moon. Now, were the stars just blotched out by the intense inner city streetlights that are on the moon? Or are there just no stars visible from the pretend moon inside of a Hollywood soundstage? I don't know. I'm just asking questions here.
There's an explanation for that. Is because they were on the lit side of the moon, so the moon itself is luminant. So when light hits the moon, it is luminant. So that light projecting out from the moon would be like city lights. You would not be able to see any light outside of that spectrum because the moon itself is luminant when the sun is projecting light off the moon. That is the explanation as to why you don't see stars, which in a lot of ways that makes a lot of sense.
Pictures have the same background. Look at these two photos. Two different locations on the moon, but each have the exact same background. Looks like the set designers got a little lazy and decided they'd go with the same background for two different fake locations. The crosshairs. Crosshairs were etched into the lens of the camera the astronauts were using, yet in a number of photos, an object allegedly on the moon appears in front of the crosshairs. This is foul play. The only way an object could appear in front of the crosshairs is if the object were superimposed on the photo. Fake photos trying to fake a real moon landing. Competing shadows. There's one source of light on the moon. It's called the sun. Yet some photos have shadows going at two different angles, suggesting multiple light sources, which suggests studio lighting, which suggests not moonlighting. Not to mention photos where the astronauts are backlit by the sun, yet you can still see the detail on front of the astronauts. Hashtag studio lighting. Now, even
Yeah, what he's bringing up right there, I remember Joe Rogan had actually made comments about that, about lighting, and like there were multiple shadows, there were different shadows and stuff that were being projected from different angles. But I mean, how long were the astronauts on the moon? Because the moon is a moving object, the Earth is a moving object, and so is the sun. You know, because the sun is literally traveling through our galaxy. The Earth is following the sun, and then the moon is following the Earth. So there could be explanations why you get multiple shadows.
getting to the moon alive would be impossible because of the Van Halen radiation belt. The Van Allen radiation belt. No one could survive the trip through this intense radiation belt that surrounds the Earth. Can a cat survive being put in a microwave? No.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the Van Halen radiation belt, they just basically say if you pass it, I think even Russia said that, China said that, other countries, India too, I think too, with their modern day space program, they're like, you cannot go past the Earth's magnetic field. If you go past it, you just get fried like an egg. Like human biologics, we cannot go past that belt. It will just fry us like an egg.
Which proves astronauts can't survive being put through the Van Allen radiation belt. Buzz Aldrin doing his best Mike Tyson. Now, in 2002, Buzz Aldrin punched a reporter who was denying the moon landing ever happened. Quite the reaction. Seems like old Buzz was feeling a little insecure about something, wasn't he? Now, how did the US fake the moon landing? I've got two words for you: Stanley Kubrick. He was hired by the government to direct and film the fake moon landing inside a Hollywood soundstage. And he could never tell the truth because if he did, they would kill him, and he knew it. That's why in his 1980 movie, The Shining, he revealed the truth through a trail of secret messages. First, take a look at the kid Danny, who obviously represents Stanley Kubrick himself in the film. He's wearing an Apollo 11 sweater, which tells you Kubrick was Apollo 11. Next, take a look at the scene involving Room 237. Room 237 obviously represents the moon because it's approximately 237,000 miles from the Earth. And take a look at the room key. It says room no 237, which means no moon. Plus, if you take the N from the word no, use it to replace the R in the word room, then flip the word backwards, you've got the word moon. And then after Danny enters the forbidden...
Here we go. Like I'm saying is, if I do this and I move this number around or I move this, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying that, it's not possible. That is a conspiracy theory behind Kubrick. Supposedly they hired Kubrick because of A Space Odyssey. He made that movie. The graphics were amazing in it, and they were like, well, they knew at that time, we physically cannot go to the moon. So, but we said by the end of this decade, like Kennedy said, who sadly was murdered, by the end of this decade, we will put a man on the moon. So that's a very interesting concept.
In room 237, which represents the moon landing that took place behind closed doors, his sweater is tattered and he has marks on his throat, and he won't tell his mother what happened. This represents NASA's stranglehold on Kubrick to keep silent about the moon landing hoax. The cases of Tang by Jack's head in the storage closet correlate to Tang being on the Apollo missions and how the truth is supposed to be kept in the closet. We could also then reason to believe that the psychotic break of Jack Nicholson's character is Kubrick's portrayal of what the pressure was like of keeping such a huge secret for so long. And some would even say that the whole movie was Kubrick's way of apologizing for being a part of the biggest lie in human history. Stanley Kubrick's whole intent of The Shining was quite poetic in nature. Let the truth live beyond him. And indeed it did. Kubrick allegedly died in 1999 of a heart attack. Yeah, not very likely. It's more probable the government finally got their eyes wide open to how Kubrick spilled the truth about the moon landing 19 years earlier in The Shining, and then decided to execute the do not talk clause in their contract, if you know what I mean. So NASA, we haven't been back to the moon for nearly 50 years. Why is that? And NASA's like, in the past 50 years, technology's actually gotten worse. Yeah, the experts say human knowledge is doubling every 13 months. And yeah, your smartphone has more computing power than all of NASA's computers combined in 1969. But aside from all that, technology is actually getting worse, making it impossible to go back to the moon. Yeah. So that's pretty much our airtight reason for why we haven't been back to the moon for 50 years.
Yeah, that's a crazy concept in what he's saying right there. I remember even talking about NASA even talking about that, about how a modern day cell phone, and this is something that I probably seen like 6 or 7 years ago. Well, a modern day cell phone had more technology than all of NASA's technology and all their computers, and you took everything and you combined it. A modern day cell phone had more technology that went into this spacecraft that went to the moon. So yeah, that's a very interesting concept of what he's saying right there. That's it's pretty crazy.
And all follow-up questions will be answered with the term budget cuts. You know what, NASA? I don't buy into your Cold War winning, deceiving the American people propaganda. Moon landing? Fake. Oh, and by the way, there are...
My opinions personally, I can't say definitively the moon landing was faked. That's just my opinion. because I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't go to the moon. Um, but there's like things that kind of point out. I know there's a mirror on the moon where they measure the distance of um, how the moon is moving away from Earth. So, who put that mirror there where they can shoot a laser to see that the moon is actually moving? It moves like an inch away from Earth like every year. Um, like, who put that there? I mean, that could have been dropped by a probe, and I know that's what a lot of people say. Oh, no, no, it was dropped by a probe. And that's possible. That's very possible. And it's very possible that we went to the moon, but it's very possible maybe we didn't. Maybe it was propaganda. I don't know. Um, leave your comments, leave your opinions down below. Do you think we went to the moon? Do you think it was faked? Um, you know, leave the comments down below. I'm interested in to hear what you guys have to say on this subject. It's a very interesting subject. If you like the video, smash that like button. Subscribe, share it with friends. You know, get it out there. You know, um, your opinions are important to me. I really want to hear what you guys have to say. Um, on that note, um, we'll end it at this. Peace.